Hi, thank you for joining me. My name is Tina. I'm an analytical thinker from the linear world who is 5 years into my journey of self-awakening. I'm here to share with you a few tools which have served me well as I've ventured down this path of self-discovery. So this video is in fact video number 3. I posted my very first video on this channel 2 weeks ago as an introductory as to why I would begin a YouTube channel at the age of 50. Feel free to go to that video to get the nuts and bolts of what this is about, but real simply, the purpose of this series of 14 videos is to assist people like me coming from a more linear mindset, we'll say, to step on or further down this path of self-awakening, quite simply. So with that, let's dig into this week's topic, which is self-healing. Self-healing is actually the second chapter of the book that I'm writing. And the title of these videos is called The Spiritual Awakening of an Analytical Mind. And the manuscript is almost done. It's going through the editing process and we'll be going to design soon, so that's all very exciting. So in regards to this, the future videos here will mirror the flow of those books, the book's chapters, just so you know. Writing this book was put in my path about 2.5 years ago, but what I'm being guided to now, and hence the birth of this YouTube channel, is that it can't wait any longer, that these nuggets of information need to get in the hands of people who may find it useful, and not wait for the book to get out. So here we are. Again, let's dig into self-healing. It's a big one, right? Yeah. Likely we all have a lot of self-healing to do. I know I've been working on it for 5 years and I still have more to do as more is brought up, or more is discovered out here, so to speak. You know, if we look up self-healing online, oftentimes what will come up is self-healing regarding like energy work. And energy work is fantastic, love it. I think it's wonderful, has wonderful benefits. But what I'm more referring to is kind of that the healing of our inner selves so that we can step forward as that truest version of ourselves. And, you know, a lot of times that is with, as we've mentioned in past videos, with love, light, healing, compassion, and gratitude that we put out into the earth, and that we have for others and that we have for ourselves as well. For many of us, we carry wounds, glaring wounds at times, right, from the past. We don't have to dig down too deeply. They're right there. Other times you got to take out that old pickaxe and really dig down, because we have buried those babies down in there. And those could be from this life, from past lives, from past generations, or what have you. And then there's the times that we can see these traits in somebody else. And if we put up a mirror, we can see that we hold them within ourselves as well, and that gives us opportunity to take a different perspective and see things that we may need to change within ourselves as well. So there's so many different opportunities to recognize what we need to heal. And with that, let's get into the kind of the nuts and bolts of it. I kind of dissected the chapter a little strangely than what most people would probably do. Unusual categories, I guess we can say. The first category I called outsourcing or subcontracting. And I know that sounds a little strange, but bear with me here if you come from a similar mindset as me. So at the end of the day, who is accountable for our healing? We are. We're accountable for ourselves. We can't ditch it on somebody else at all. We can bring in our subject matter experts to assist us with different things, but ultimately we need to step up to the plate and be the ones who work on our self-healing. So that's why I named it outsourcing. So within outsourcing, there are so many different categories within that we can examine, but I'm going to kind of hone it in. We're trying to limit these conversations a little bit. So we're going to look at mind, body, spirit within this outsourcing means. And so let's just start with mind. You know, each of us is going to find a different thing. Again, these are food for thought, nuggets you can take with you. You can examine different things. You know, it could be simple awareness, which isn't so simple sometimes. It could be mindfulness. It could be meditation. It could be counseling, quite honestly. I know I sat on the couch of a counselor for years. before I started on this path and a little bit into this path. It gave me a place to unload some baggage. It gave me a safe place to say things out loud that I could then process for myself. It gave me a place to say things that were outside my inner circle that would not have ramifications, if I had shared within my inner circle. So for me, that worked. But I will say that as I ventured onto this path, I began processing things differently. I was at a different place in my life as well. And I was put in touch with a shaman, and for a while there was overlap there, and he became a second form of counseling for me and a different way to look at things, which I'll get into with the spirit in a second. But in many ways it reset my brain, my mind, how my outlook on things. It changed the perspective of any victimness that I had to warrioress, and many of my life's lessons many life lessons that he shared with me, I now carry on, with my days. So there's many avenues that we can examine and start chipping away at some of the things that we need to chip away with, because ultimately there's just so much, right? That awareness button, that awareness that we have this ego that comes in and hijacks our thoughts, our rational behaviors at times, our reasonableness, and really awareness of all this helps make this path a little bit easier. Body, we all know some of those, as far as the massage therapist, the acupuncturist, the reflexologist, the myofascial release. Heck, for body work, I'd lump energy work into that as well, quite honestly, or throw in manicures and pedicures if you'd like. I have a good friend who gets after me every now and then on the necessity of this, that I should be scheduling body work on a monthly basis. I don't. I should. But I still have this guilt associated with it, I guess, that it's a treat. And so it becomes this guilty pleasure, which is insane, because the power of touch is tremendous, right? And allowing our bodies to have a routine with that is a very healing process. So I encourage you to examine that, examine what your practices are, and step forward with them, maybe further than you are now, or initiate them. And that brings us to spirit. As I mentioned before, I've had the great opportunity to have a spiritual advisor, a spiritual mentor, and he has really shifted so much in me. He's taught me to, if I raise up myself, I'm then going to raise up my children. He's taught me to be a steward for the earth, to open myself up to creativity and all the power that comes with that. He's taught me to change my mental confines, we'll say, of looking at something with pity versus looking at it with power, to, for myself or for others, to, as I mentioned, not being a victim, standing in my power and owning that. And there's just so much that brings to it. And the thing is that just as I mentioned him up in, the mind piece of it, look at a yoga instructor and what the practice of yoga brings to it. That's covering mind, body, and spirit as well. So find what makes sense for you. Find a practice that brings in all three of those things. Get the body work done. Do all these things. There's just so many opportunities for us to work on ourselves and to be kind to ourselves. Okay, so I'm watching the time tick here. Let's hit the second category real quickly, which is I put ceremony. And you guys probably think I'm crazy, but maybe it's a little strange, but I feel like ceremony was introduced to me a few years back, and for me what it brings is it shows the universe that we're showing up to do the work to become our truest self. And ceremony can take many different forms, but for me, not coming from a religious household necessarily, it also taught me about that there's something bigger than ourselves in play here, right? And some people are okay with God. For me, I say Great Spirit, and I'm getting used to God. It wasn't that I didn't believe, but I guess maybe I didn't believe. And so that's a huge step, accepting and believing something greater than yourself in motion in all of this. In my humble opinion, the simplest and easiest way to incorporate ceremony into your life is through following a new and full moon ceremony. It not only allows you to hold ceremony and form that practice, but it also aligns you with the lunar cycle, which is great. So you can look up wherever you live, the new and full moons time in your time zone or what have you. And you can look up online different sources for ceremonies. The one I used early on was Forever Conscious. If that helps anybody, it's a pretty tame site. It wasn't crazy. It gave me step-by-step guides, which I operate with. And really what's happening is on that new moon, you are setting intentions. And on the full moon, you're kind of releasing what no longer serves you. So in having that routine, you're going within and you're discovering those aspects of yourself. You're recognizing those things within you. So that's why it kind of all works as far as self-healing. And although this is going to allow you to do it in the confines of your house, quite honestly, if you have the opportunity to do it with a group, you bring together like-minded individuals all operating on a higher frequency, it just accelerates the magic, quite honestly. And by higher vibrations, the people, living in their truth, living from that heart center space that we talk about, and you'll find yourself being drawn to those people as well versus, the low frequency, the people who kind of look more at the toxic emotions and maybe not living from that same space. You'll get drawn to who you're going to get drawn to. So I would advise not necessarily doing that, but evolving to that or being open to those things. And I think you'll like where ceremony takes you. The last piece that I want to hit on is for a category on self-healing is genealogy, which once again you'll say, what? How is that self-healing? I didn't realize it either at first. It was advised to me to begin looking at my ancestors. So for months, initially, like early on in my journey, I did this, and I kind of was a little bummed out about it because other people were flying high down this path of intuition and everything, and I didn't have it. But it was fascinating, and ultimately it was extraordinary, quite honestly. I researched every line. I read books that pertain to kind of periods in the 1800s that my family was coming up through Maine and starting new towns and doing things like that, so I could get in that mindset. I looked at census from way back when, and I could see, births, deaths, where people lived. I was able to get pictures from online or from family members, but probably most importantly, I sat with some older family members to hear their stories, because once that generation above us or two above you or whatever it is leaves this place, those stories go, and they probably hold stories from the generation prior and maybe two prior. And so to hear those, embrace those, and it's healing for everyone. One, it helps give us the picture. We're having these just heartfelt conversations with our family members, and they love to share. So for me, in the end, it was probably one of the best pieces of this journey. But what then happened is that combined ceremony and genealogy, and my ancestors started showing up in these ceremonies. And I'm going to talk quickly here, and we can hit on this later, but it allowed for healing of our family lines, which was just so tremendous. Healing of the family lines, recognizing traits that have been carried through these lines, and either embracing those for the generations going forward, or maybe trying to cult some of those traits going forward. So with that, we're at 14 minutes. So ultimately, there are so many modes of self-healing out there. You need to examine what works for you, step forward with it, be open to some of these little nuggets that maybe you want to examine further. They're all fantastic, and they all kind of raise us up to who we are to be. But I think that's enough for today. I want to keep you going. I promise you around 15 minutes. So just remember that this video, or these videos, and the book are really meant as an outline for you to write your story around. And I'm not trying to be everything for you by any means. I'm trying to just put the thought out there for you. As I mentioned before, the book is progressing through editing, and I'm hoping for a summer release, so I will keep you posted on that aspect. And in the meantime, we'll continue with these videos and go through the chapters. The next video, next Thursday, is going to be on solitude. So that doesn't sound as boring as it's going. That won't be as boring as it sounds. Again, if you're interested, you can subscribe on my homepage to Tina L. Moody. Every Monday I send out an email to those who are subscribed, and it's just words of inspiration for you to take on your week. As I mentioned in the past videos, I started receiving messages from guides in October, and what I'm being guided to do is that each Monday I sit down, tap in, and they provide a message that I then share out. It's the only email that I do send out, and it's just a quick words of inspiration to take on your week. So feel free to do that. And lastly, a new addition since I last talked to you folks. The night before I was posting last week's video, a friend of mine reached out and has started a new conscious community on Patreon. I didn't know what Patreon was, but she has asked me to begin working with these messages, sharing messages to these people, and kind of creating this little platform. And so I went live on Monday with my first video, which is crazy. Like, bringing this book, birthing this book out into the world was a huge step, and I'm just kind of coming out of that. And then nobody knows about this YouTube video. I've told one person, and so I laughed that this is all done in secrecy, and then to be asked to do this other thing. So I guess, if nothing else, 50 is full of changes for me already 1 month into it. And anyway, I'll let you go. Much love and gratitude for you joining me today, or whenever you happen to watch this. I hope you'll join me back here next Thursday when we talk about solitude. In the meantime, thank you and have a fantastic week.